My son forgot to hang up. I heard the worst and then decided to do something he never imagined. It was Tuesday, like any other Tuesday of these last months since Fernando left. The kitchen clock marked 3:30 in the afternoon, that hour when the silence of the house becomes heavier and memories arrive without warning. I decided to call Roberto, my middle son, the one who had always been most affectionate with me after his father died. I dialed the number I knew by heart and waited 1, 2, 3 rings until his familiar voice calmed my soul. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, my love. How are you? I just wanted to hear your voice for a while." "Oh, Mom, how good that you're calling. I was just thinking about you. How do you feel today? Have you taken your blood pressure pills?" Roberto always asked about my medications. Since Fernando died last year, he had assumed the role of taking care of me. Although at 75, I still managed perfectly well on my own. Well, almost perfectly. "Yes, my dear. I already took them with breakfast." "And Marina? And the grandchildren?" "Everyone's fine, Mom. The kids are still at school." "Hey, have you thought about what we talked about last week? About the residence?" There it was again, the famous Villa Esperanza residence, which Roberto had mentioned several times in recent weeks. According to him, it was a beautiful place, with gardens and activities for people my age, where I would have better medical care and wouldn't be so alone. "Roberto's son, I already told you I'm fine here in my house. This house your father and I bought 40 years ago. Here I raised you 3. Here is my entire life." "I know, Mom. I know. But Marina and I worry so much. You live alone. You have diabetes, high blood pressure, and if something happens to you..." "Nothing is going to happen to me, Roberto. I have Mrs. Carmen, who comes to clean twice a week, Dr. Garcia, who visits me every month, and you all who call me. I'm perfectly fine." Well, don't get upset. We'll talk about this better later." "Yes, now I have to resolve some things here at work. I love you, Mom. I love you too, my love. Give my regards to Marina and the grandchildren."
"Of course, Mom. See you later."
And here is when my world collapsed. I waited for the sound of the phone hanging up, that familiar click that indicates the call ended, but it never came. Instead, I heard background noises, footsteps walking away from the phone, the sound of a door opening, and then Marina's voice, clear as if she were speaking directly to me. "Are you done talking to the old woman?" I froze with the receiver glued to my ear, not daring even to breathe loudly. The old woman. That's what she had called me after 15 years of marriage to my son, after I had received her into the family like another daughter, after taking care of her children when she needed to work, after preparing meals for her when she was pregnant and couldn't even look at the kitchen. That's what she called me when she thought I couldn't hear her. Yes, it's done, but she keeps insisting on staying in that house. It was Roberto's voice. My Roberto, the boy I had raised, to whom I had sung lullabies, whose scraped knees I had healed, whom I had helped with school homework until late at night. My son was there talking about me as if I were a burden. Well, she's going to have to understand that she can't stay there forever, Roberto. That house is worth a fortune. Now it's in the pink zone. It has that enormous backyard, and with the real estate boom, the value must have risen like foam. Marina spoke with a coldness that pierced me like a knife. That house, my house, the house where Fernando and I had been happy, where we had planted together the lemon tree that now shaded the entire terrace, where every corner had a story, every mark on the wall, a memory of my children growing up. I know, Marina, but I also can't just throw her out of her own house. It's not about throwing her out, my love. It's about being intelligent. Your mom is already old, lives alone. Any day she could fall, the house could burn down, she could forget the stove on. It's dangerous for her, and it's a constant worry for us. Lie. All lies. I was perfectly fine. Yes, I had diabetes and hypertension, but controlled with medications. Yes, sometimes I forgot my keys, or couldn't remember where I had put my glasses. But that happens to anyone. I had never had a serious domestic accident, never left the stove on, never been a burden to anyone. Besides, Marina continued, and her voice took a more calculating tone, Think about it well. With what that house is worth, we could buy something bigger for us. The children are growing. Sebastian already needs his own room, and Valeria too. We could look for something with a pool in a gated community with 24-hour security. But Marina, it's my mom's house. It was your mom and dad's house. But your dad is already dead, Roberto. And your mom, let's be realistic. How many more years is she going to live? 5, 10 if she's lucky. And meanwhile, that fortune in real estate is sitting there being wasted when we need it, now that we're raising our children. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. How many more years was I going to live? She spoke about me as if I were a temporary obstacle, as if my death were just a matter of time that had to be waited for with patience. Look, Marina continued, and I could hear how she moved around the house, probably making coffee or arranging something, as if this conversation about my future were the most normal thing in the world. I already investigated everything about Villa Esperanza. It's perfect for her. It has 24-hour medical service, activities to keep her active, people her age to talk to. She's going to be much better cared for than living alone in that enormous house. I don't know, Marina. It seems very harsh to me. Roberto, please. Your mom is living in the past. That house is too big for one person. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, living room, dining room, integral kitchen, laundry room, terrace, and that gigantic garden that she can't even maintain anymore. It's a total waste. It was true that I could no longer prune the rose bushes like before, that the garden had lost some of its former glory since Fernando died. He was the one who took care of the plants while I dedicated myself to the kitchen and the interior of the house. But it was still my garden, my terrace where I had coffee every morning, my kitchen where I still prepared the meals I liked most. Besides, and here Marina's voice became more conspiratorial. Think about it from the legal point of view. If your mom enters a residence, we could manage her assets more easily. You have the legal power they gave you when your dad died, right? Yes. Roberto had a legal power that Fernando and I had signed years earlier, when he was already sick, and we wanted to make sure someone could handle our affairs if something happened to us. It was something common, the lawyer had told us, a normal precaution for people our age. And yes, I have it, but that's only for emergencies, Marina. And what do you think this is? Your mom living alone at her age is an emergency. Look, my love, I know it's difficult, but we have to be practical. With the sale of that house, we could solve many problems. We could buy our new house, put the children in a better school. We could even go on vacation to Europe like we had dreamed. Europe? How curious. With the money from the sale of my house, they would go to Europe. My house, where I had lived half my life, where I had been happy with the man I loved for 48 years, would become European vacations for Marina and Roberto. I don't know, it seems very strong to me to do that behind my mom's back. Behind her back? Roberto, please, we're not talking about deceiving her. We're going to explain to her that it's for her own good, that in the residence she'll be better cared for, safer, more accompanied. At first she'll resist, obviously, but later she'll realize it was the best decision. And if she doesn't want to sign, that question froze my blood. Sign what? What paper were they talking about? That's why you have the legal power, my love. If the doctor certifies that she can no longer make decisions for herself, you can do it for her. I already spoke with my cousin Letitia, the one who's a geriatrician, and she told me it's easier than it seems, especially with older people who have diabetes and high blood pressure. You can always argue that they have episodes of confusion or memory loss. But my mom is perfectly lucid, Marina. Oh yes. Didn't she tell you last week that she had seen your dad sitting in the living room watching television? Didn't she get confused when you called her and asked if you had already arrived from school as if you were still a child? My heart stopped. Yes, I had had those episodes twice in the last month. I had sworn to see Fernando in his favorite chair, reading the newspaper as he had done for so many years. And yes, once when Roberto called me very early, still half asleep, I had asked him if he had already arrived from school as if he were 8 years old again. But they were just moments of normal confusion in someone my age who had lost their life companion. It didn't mean I was crazy or incapacitated. That doesn't mean anything, Marina. It's normal for older people to sometimes get confused. Exactly. And that confusion is precisely what we need to document. Letitia says that with 2 or 3 well-documented episodes, plus her age and her medical conditions, any judge will approve you taking decisions for her. I was still there paralyzed, listening to how they planned my life, as if I were a minor or mentally incapacitated, as if my 75 years of experience, of making decisions, of raising a family, meant nothing. It still seems very strong to me, Marina. Roberto, please, look at reality. Your mom is deteriorating. She's living in a fantasy where your dad is still alive, where she can still manage such a big house, where she doesn't need help from anyone. We're helping her face reality. And what do we do with my brothers? Carlos and Patricia also have to agree. My other 2 children. Carlos, the eldest, lived in the United States with his family. Patricia, the youngest, was in Medellin with her husband and their 3 children. Both came to visit me every 6 months. They called me every week, but they lived far away, and Roberto had become the one who took care of practical matters. Roberto, your brothers live far away. They don't see the day-to-day reality like we do. Besides, think about it. It's also for their good. When your mom dies, they're going to inherit in equal parts, right? But if by then we have to pay years of residence, medical expenses, specialized medications, the inheritance will be reduced a lot. I hadn't thought about that. That's why I'm here, my love, to think about these things. If we sell the house now, we can invest the money, make it grow. When it's time for the inheritance, your brothers are going to receive much more than they would if we let care expenses eat up everything. How intelligent Marina sounded. How well planned. She had everything. She had even thought about my other children, how to benefit them economically with my misfortune. Of course, she didn't mention that. Meanwhile, she and Roberto would live in a bigger house, bought with the money from the sale of mine. And how much do you think we could get for the house? Oh, Roberto, I already did my research. A similar house on the next block sold last month for 350 million pesos. But your mom's is bigger, has better location, and that lot is worth gold. I think we could ask for 400 million easily. 200 million pesos. That's what my house was worth, my home, my life. For Marina, they were simply numbers, a business opportunity. For me, it was everything I had in the world. Have you already found out how much Villa Esperanza costs? Yes, of course. It's 2.5 million per month. Everything included. Food, medical service, activities, laundry, everything. It seems expensive, but think about it. That's 30 million per year. Even if your mom lives 10 more years, it would be 300 million. We'd still have 100 million free. 100 million free. After paying for my golden prison for 10 years, they would still have 100 million pesos to enjoy. How generous Marina was with my own assets. I don't know, Marina. All this seems very calculated to me. And it has to be calculated, Roberto, please understand. I'm not just thinking about us, I'm thinking about the whole family. Your mom is going to be better cared for. We're going to be able to give our children a better life. Your brothers are going to inherit more money. Everyone wins. Everyone except me, I thought. But apparently my opinion didn't count in this so perfectly calculated equation. Besides, Marina continued, and her voice now sounded softer, more manipulative. Think about it from the emotional point of view. Your mom is depressed since your dad died. She's alone, sad, living on memories. At Villa Esperanza, she's going to meet new people. She's going to have activities. She's going to have a social life. It's going to be like being reborn. Being reborn. What a beautiful expression to describe how they would tear me from my home and put me in an institution against my will. And if she doesn't want to go? At first she won't want to. Obviously nobody wants to change at her age, but we're going to convince her little by little. We're going to show her the advantages. We're going to take her to see the place. We're going to introduce her to some people who live there and are happy. And if she definitely refuses? The question hung in the air for a few seconds. I heard Marina sigh, as if she were thinking about the best way to respond. Roberto, my love, there are times in life when one has to make difficult decisions for the people we love. Your mom is no longer capable of seeing what's best for her. She's clinging to the past, refusing to accept her new reality. We as her family have the responsibility to take care of her, even if that means making decisions she doesn't understand at the moment. But legally, there's no problem. You have the power. I already spoke with Letitia about how to document the confusion episodes, and Villa Esperanza has all the experience in receiving older adults who at first resist. It's more common than you think. Apparently, my situation wasn't unique. Apparently, there was an entire industry built around convincing families that it was for the good of their elderly loved ones to take them out of their homes and put them in institutions. And when would you do all this? The sooner, the better. Every day that passes is money lost in house appreciation, and your mom every day is more attached to her routine. I say next week, we can start showing her photos of Villa Esperanza, telling her about the activities, awakening her curiosity. I don't know, Marina. Roberto, please, trust me. I've already thought of everything. We're going to do this with love, with patience, but also with firmness. In the end, your mom is going to thank us. Thank us. I was going to thank them for stealing my house, for tearing me from my life, for locking me up in an institution where I would die surrounded by strangers instead of in the home where I had been happy. Well, I suppose you're right. Of course I'm right. Look, why don't we start this weekend? We can go visit her, bring the children so she gets distracted, and incidentally, we start putting the idea in her head. Very subtle, very affectionate. All right, perfect. And Roberto, don't mention anything about the sale of the house yet. It's better that first she gets used to the idea of the residence, then we talk about the house issue. Okay. I love you, my love. You're the best husband in the world. Your children are going to be so proud when they're older and see everything you did for your family. Everything he did for his family, stealing the house from his own mother. I heard footsteps approaching the phone, and finally the click that indicated the call had ended. I stayed there sitting with the receiver still in my hand, trembling like a leaf. I had heard everything, every word, every plan, every justification. My son and my daughter-in-law had planned my future without consulting me. They had decided what was best for me without caring about my opinion. They had calculated down to the last peso what my assets were worth and how they were going to distribute them. Tears ran down my face uncontrollably. They weren't just tears of sadness, but of such deep betrayal that it physically hurt in my chest. The son I had raised with so much love, to whom I had given everything, for whom I would have given my life without thinking twice, was conspiring to steal the only thing I had left in the world, my home and my freedom. I got up from the chair where I had been sitting during the call and walked to the living room window. From there I could see the garden that Fernando and I had planted together, the lemon tree that shaded the terrace, the rose bushes that, although not as well cared for as before, still bloomed every spring. All of that, according to Marina, was a waste because I could no longer maintain it like before. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the glass. In that kitchen, I had prepared thousands of meals for my family. I had celebrated birthdays, Christmases, graduations. At that table, Roberto had done his school homework while I cooked and helped him with the math that was so difficult for him. I went up to the master bedroom, the one I had shared with Fernando for 40 years. His clothes were still in the closet because I hadn't had the courage to donate them. His side of the bed still had his crossword book on the nightstand. Sometimes in the mornings, when I woke up, for a second I forgot he was gone and reached out to touch him. All of that, all my life, all my memories were going to be sold for 400 million pesos so that Marina and Roberto could buy themselves a bigger house and go on vacation to Europe. I sat on my bed and cried like I hadn't cried since Fernando's funeral. But as the hours passed and the tears dried, something stronger began to grow inside me. It wasn't just sadness I felt. It was anger, a deep ancestral anger of a woman who had worked her whole life and who wasn't willing to be treated like a mental invalid. Roberto had underestimated his mother. They had both underestimated Elena Garcia, widow of Rodriguez. For 75 years, I had faced everything that life had put in front of me: the death of my parents when I was young, raising 3 children while working part-time to help the family economy, Fernando's illness and his long agony, the loneliness after his death. I had faced everything, and here I was still standing. I wasn't going to allow them to treat me like a senile old woman who couldn't make her own decisions. I wasn't going to allow them to steal my house and my freedom with the excuse that it was for my own good. And I definitely wasn't going to allow Marina, that viper who had been smiling at me for 15 years while planning to strip me of everything, to get away with it. I got up from the bed and walked to Fernando's study. There was his old wooden desk, with all his papers still organized as he liked them. I took out the notebook where he wrote down all the important numbers: the bank, the lawyer, the accountant, the doctor. I was going to need help, but not from family. This time I was going to have to trust strangers. I dialed Dr. Garcia's number, my family doctor for more than 10 years. "Doctor, this is Elena Rodriguez. Excuse me for bothering you so late, but I need to ask you for a very important favor. I need you to do some complete examinations to prove that I'm in perfect use of my mental faculties." "Yes, doctor. I know it sounds strange, but it's very important. It could be tomorrow morning." Dr. Garcia, who knew me well, agreed to see me the next day, early in the morning. He would do neurological, psychological, memory tests, everything necessary to prove that I was perfectly sane and capable of making my own decisions. Then I called the lawyer who had handled Fernando's affairs. "Dr. Hernandez, this is Elena Rodriguez, Fernando Rodriguez's widow. I need to see you urgently to review some legal documents we signed a few years ago, specifically the power we gave to our son Roberto." Yes, tomorrow afternoon would be perfect. Finally, I called my other 2 children. First, Carlos in Miami. "Carlos, my love, it's Mom. Yes, I'm fine, but I need to talk to you about something very serious. Can you make time to talk calmly? It's about Roberto and a very delicate situation." The conversation with Carlos lasted almost an hour. At first, he didn't believe me. He thought it was some misunderstanding, but as I told him the details of what I had heard, his voice got harder. "Mom, that's unacceptable. Roberto has no right to make those decisions without consulting all of us." "No, Carlos, not yet. First, I need to protect myself legally, make sure they can't do anything to me. Then we'll see how we handle this as a family." Then I called Patricia in Medellin. Her reaction was even stronger than Carlos's. "But how dare he, Mom? That house is yours. It's your life. Nobody has the right to force you to sell it. And that Marina, I always knew there was something strange about her. But this is too much. Patricia, my love, I need you to support me. But for now, don't do anything. Let me organize things here, and then we'll see how we proceed." That night, I barely slept. I tossed and turned in bed thinking about everything I had heard, planning my next steps. Roberto and Marina would come on the weekend to visit me and start their convincing campaign, but I would already be prepared. At 7 in the morning, I was already up, bathed and dressed in my best navy blue suit, the one I used for important occasions. If I was going to fight for my life and my patrimony, I would do it with all the dignity my years had taught me. Dr. Garcia received me at 8 o'clock sharp. He was a serious professional man who had known Fernando and me for years. I explained the situation to him without going into details about who was involved. "Doctor, I need you to do all the necessary examinations to prove that I'm in perfect mental condition. They're trying to declare me incompetent to handle my own affairs." Dr. Garcia frowned. "Mrs. Elena, you're perfectly fine. Yes, you have diabetes and hypertension, but controlled. Mentally, you're as lucid as any person half your age." "I know, doctor, but I need that to be officially documented." For the next 2 hours, Dr. Garcia did memory tests, orientation, reasoning capacity, motor skills. He also took my blood pressure, checked my reflexes, asked me questions about dates, names, recent events. "Mrs. Elena, all your results are perfect. Your memory is intact. Your reasoning capacity is excellent. You don't have any signs of senile dementia, Alzheimer's, or any other condition that could affect your capacity to make decisions. I'm going to document all this in an official report that you can use when you need it. At 2 in the afternoon, I was in Dr. Hernandez's office. The lawyer? He was an older man, almost my age, who had been Fernando's friend, in addition to our legal advisor. Elena, I'm very glad to see you. Although I'm sorry, it's under these circumstances. Tell me exactly what's happening. I told him everything, every word I had heard in that phone call, every plan Roberto and Marina had, every justification they had given to strip me of my house and my freedom. Dr. Hernandez listened with a frown, occasionally taking notes. Elena, this is very serious. What they're planning to do is technically legal if they manage to prove that you're not capable of making your own decisions, but it's ethically reprehensible, and considering that you're perfectly fine, it could constitute abuse against an older adult. What can I do, doctor? Several things. First, we're going to immediately revoke the power you gave Roberto. Second, we're going to create a new will, where you specify exactly what you want to happen with your assets. Third, we're going to establish legal protection measures so that nobody can make decisions for you without your express consent. And is that enough? Elena, with the medical report you have and these legal measures, nobody is going to be able to touch you a peso or force you to do anything against your will. But let me ask you something. What do you want to achieve with this? Just protect yourself? Or do you also want there to be consequences for Roberto and Marina? It was a good question. What did I really want? Just to protect myself? Or also to teach them a lesson they would never forget? Dr. Hernandez? I want to protect myself, of course, but I also want them to understand that their mother isn't a defenseless old woman who can be manipulated. I want them to know there are consequences when you betray family. The lawyer smiled for the first time since I had arrived. Elena, I think you have more character than Roberto imagines. Let me suggest something. We're going to prepare everything legally, but we're also going to prepare a little surprise for when they come this weekend. For the next 2 hours, Dr. Hernandez and I designed a plan. First, we immediately revoked the power Roberto had over my affairs. Second, we created a new will where I specified that any child who tried to declare me incompetent or force me to sell my house would automatically lose their part of the inheritance. Third, we established a trust where my assets would be protected and only I could make decisions about them. But doctor, I want to keep living in my house. I'm not interested in selling it now or ever.
Perfect, Elena.
In the new will, you're going to specify that you want to live in your house until the day of your death, and that any family member who tries to take you out of there against your will lose all their inheritance rights. And what happens if I really need special care in the future? We're going to establish that if in the future you need specialized medical care, private nurses will be hired to attend you in your own house. And only if a panel of 3 independent doctors certifies that it's absolutely impossible to give you the care you need at home, then and only then could you consider a residence, but always with your express consent and never selling the house. It was perfect. I was legally protected in every possible way. And when will all this be ready? Tomorrow morning, you'll have all the documents ready. But Elena, there's something else you should consider. What thing? Roberto still doesn't know that you heard that conversation. That gives you a huge advantage. You could simply confront him with what you know. Or you could, let's say, give him a little lesson about underestimating his mother. Dr. Hernandez's eyes sparkled with a mischief I hadn't seen in years. Fernando would have loved this moment. What do you have in mind, doctor? Well, if Roberto and Marina come this weekend to start convincing you to go to Villa Esperanza, why don't we play along? You act like you're considering the idea. Let them get excited about their plans, and just when they think they have everything under control, you give them the surprise. I liked how that sounded. What kind of surprise? The new documents will already be ready. On Friday afternoon, we're going to have a small meeting at your house, very formal with notary and everything. You're going to tell them that you want to discuss your future, and that you've made some important decisions. When they arrive expecting to sign papers to sell your house and put you in a residence, they're going to find that they no longer have any power over you, and that their plans have just turned to smoke. The idea excited me so much that I laughed for the first time in days. Doctor, I think Fernando would have been very proud of this. Elena, Fernando would have been proud of you. He always told me you were the strongest woman he had ever known in his life. I left the lawyer's office feeling like a new woman. For the first time since Fernando died, I had a clear purpose, something to fight for. I wasn't going to be anyone's victim. That night I called Carlos and Patricia again to tell them about the plan. Mom, Carlos told me, I think what you're doing is perfect. Roberto deserves a lesson for having planned all this behind your back. Patricia was more direct. Mom, give him what he deserves. I never completely trusted Marina, but this is too much. Let Roberto learn what it means to mess with the family matriarch. On Wednesday, Roberto called me as if nothing had happened. Hello, Mom, how are you? Fine, my love, I responded with the sweetest voice I could. How are Marina and the children? Everyone's fine. Hey, Marina and I were thinking of coming to visit you on Saturday with the children. Does that seem good to you? It seems perfect, my dear. It's been a while since I've seen my grandchildren. Perfect. And Mom, I wanted to take advantage to talk about some important things, about your future, about how we can help you better. Oh yes, son. Actually, I've also been thinking a lot about that. You're right that I'm not so young anymore, and maybe I do need to consider some different options. I could hear the surprise in his voice. Clearly, he didn't expect me to be so receptive. Really, Mom? Have you been thinking about the residence thing? Yes, my love. I've been turning over everything you told me, and I think maybe you all are right. This house is very big for me alone, and sometimes I do feel a little lost here without your father. Mom, I'm so glad to hear you say that. Marina is going to be happy to know you're open to considering other options. Surely Marina was going to be happy. She was probably already calculating what she was going to spend the 400 million pesos on. Yes, son. Actually, I was thinking that maybe on Saturday we could sit down to seriously talk about all the options. We could even call a lawyer to help us with the legal papers that are needed. A lawyer? What for, Mom? Well, if I'm going to make important decisions about my future and my assets, it's better to do everything properly from the beginning, don't you think? Yes, you're right. Very well, Mom. So we'll see you Saturday around 2 in the afternoon. Perfect, my love. I'll be waiting for you with much affection. When I hung up, I stayed smiling alone in the living room. Roberto had taken the bait completely. Now I just had to wait for Saturday to give them the surprise of their lives. I spent Thursday and Friday preparing everything. Dr. Hernandez came Friday morning with all the documents ready. The revocation of Roberto's power, the new will, the trust papers, everything perfectly legal and notarized. Elena, everything is ready. Roberto no longer has any legal power over you or your assets. If he tries to do anything, he's going to find that legally he can't touch a peso. And the notary is coming tomorrow. Yes, Dr. Mejia will be here at 3 in the afternoon for the official meeting. But Elena, are you sure you want to do this way? We could simply confront Roberto privately. No, doctor. I want everything to be very clear. I want Marina to also be present when they realize their plan crumbled. I want them to know that their mother isn't an old woman who lets herself be manipulated. Saturday morning I got up early and fixed the house like I hadn't done in months. I cleaned, organized, put fresh flowers in all the vases. I wanted the house to look perfect, to look like the home of a woman who was perfectly capable of taking care of herself and her patrimony. At 2 o'clock sharp, Roberto, Marina, and the children arrived. Sebastian, my 12-year-old grandson, ran to hug me like always. Grandmother, how are you? Mom says you might move to a new place. Oh, my dear. Yes, I've been thinking about some things, but first let's have lunch and then we'll talk about all that calmly. Marina greeted me with her usual smile. That smile, I now knew, was completely false. Elena, what a pleasure to see you. You look very good. Thank you, Marina. You also look very good. During lunch, Marina and Roberto were very careful not to directly mention the residence topic. Instead, They talked about how big my house was, how alone I looked, how worried they were about my safety. The truth, Mom, Roberto said while eating the sancocho I had prepared for them. Marina and I have been talking a lot about your situation. We want the best for you. I know, my love, and that's why I've been thinking about everything you've told me. Marina almost choked on her food. Really, Elena? Have you been considering the options we mentioned? Yes, Marina. You're right about many things. This house is big for one person, and since Fernando died, sometimes I do feel very alone here. Marina's eyes lit up as if she had won the lottery. Elena, I'm so glad to hear you say that. Roberto and I have been researching some very nice places where you could be very comfortable and very well cared for. Oh yes, tell me. For the next hour, Marina described Villa Esperanza to me as if it were paradise on earth. The activities, the gardens, the medical service, the company of people my age. Roberto nodded to everything she said, adding comments about my safety and my well-being. And Mom, Roberto finally said, the truth is that the economic issue is also important. Maintaining this house,